they're predators, they're carnivores. All raptors, hawks, falcons, eagles, and owls come equipped with excellent eyesight, sharp curved hooked beak, and real strong feet with deadly talons. So these raptors we brought today are nocturnal hunters. So what do we got? Nocturnal hunters. Owls, you betcha. Okay, well, there are 240 different species of owls in the world. All right. Now, like I said, there's 240 different species of owls in the world. 4 of them live here in Missouri, locals like us. And I'm going to start with the biggest and work down to the smallest. But our biggest one that we have at the zoo is not able to go out on programs right now. So I brought one, a fake one. This is a great horned owl, and this is a boy. A girl would be about a third again bigger, because girl raptors are always bigger than the boys. The hawks, falcons, eagles, and owls. The girls are always bigger. So this is a boy, and they're called great horned owls because see these feather tufts on the top of his head? When they're standing straight up, they kind of look like horns, especially at night if they're perched high on top of a light pole and the silhouette. Those things standing straight up kind of remind us of horns. So I think that's how they got called the great horned owl. But those aren't horns. Those are feathers. And a lot of people think those are their ears. That's not true either. They're actually there to help great horned owls communicate with each other. Kind of like we use body language and facial expressions to communicate without talking. Great horned owls use their feather tufts to communicate. So, let's imagine that one of this guy's friends is out in the wild hunting at night. He's perched high up on top of a light pole, surveying an open field, looking, watching for some critter that he could catch and eat. And his feather tufts are likely to be standing straight up because, you know, he's alert, he's paying attention, but no problems. So while he's got his feather tufts standing straight up because he's alert and he's paying attention, but no problems. And then he looks off in the distance and he says, oh my goodness, there's another great horned owl flying right towards me. Well, the nerve of that dude. So he gives a shout out, a hoot, and if that other owl's paying attention, he'll go, oh, golly, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. I don't mean to intrude, and he'll fly off some other direction. Okay, problem averted. But what if that owl keeps coming? Well then, our first owl's going to think, well, maybe he didn't hear me. I'll have to give him more of a warning. So he'll stand up as tall as he can, stretch out his neck, poof out his feathers, trying to make himself look as big as possible, and then he'll flip his feather tufts out to the side like this. And that means, I see you, dude, and you are making a big mistake. If you know what's good for you, you'll get out of here. Well, that other owl that's coming is thinking, you know what? I've been keeping my eye on this field, and there's a lot of good groceries here. I'd like to have that territory for myself. And tonight, I'm feeling lucky. And he keeps coming. Uh-oh. Well, now those feather tufts are going to go from out to the side to straight forward. And that means put up your talons. The fight is on. So the feather tufts, communication may prevent an altercation, a fight, may not, it depends, but at least that incoming owl has had plenty of warning. Okay. Well, the next thing I'd like you to notice about him is he has these big yellow eyes. And owls need a large eye surface because they need to have a large eye surface to absorb as much light as is available at night, like moonlight and starlight, maybe out in the country, a vapor light at a farm. So they need a big eye surface. Now their eyes actually take up a lot of room in their skull. Our eyes are shaped like eyeballs. That's why we call them eyeballs, because they're shaped like a sphere. And our eyes only take up 5% of the space in our skulls, and the rest of our skull is open for our great big brains. And it's our great big brains that make us at the top of the food chain. Yeah. But an owl's eyes are shaped like cones. Yeah. And they take up 70% of the space in their skulls. And there's just a little bit of room left over for brains. So if somebody calls you a bird brain, that's not a compliment. That's an insult. Well, our eyes are like theirs in some ways. We humans and owls both have what we call binocular vision, which means that we can see an object with both eyes at the same time. And our eyes are made up of rods and cones. So are theirs. Rods detect light, cones detect color. But owls have thousands more rod cells. And that's how they can see so well at night. But because they have so many rod cells, the ones that detect light, there's not a whole lot of room left over for the cone cells. And the cone cells are what detect color. So, what can't an owl see? Raise your hand if you know.
A lot of color.
They can't see color, that's right. Their world is black and white and gray. But they're hunting at night, you know. And seeing color isn't important. What's important is detecting movement. So, no need for a whole bunch of cone cells. And their eyes are so big. Well, here, let's do an experiment. Hold your head perfectly still. Don't let it move. And look up at the ceiling. And then look down at the floor. And then look to your right. And then look to your left. Not a problem. You can do it. Owls can't. Their eyes are so big and take up so much room in their skull, there's no room left for muscles. So their eyes are locked in place. And they, in order to see above or below or beside or behind them, what do they have to do?
They twist their head.
They have to turn their head exactly right. So, an owl will start looking over his left wing, swivel his head around till his head is completely backwards and he's looking behind him, and keep turning his head till his beak and eyes are looking over his right wing. You know, they can do that so fast, a lot of people think they can do it 360 degrees, but not quite. But they can do a 270, a 3/4 turn. Way more than we can. So, how do they do that? Okay, so twice the number of 7 is 14. So they have 14 vertebrae in their neck, and that's one of the reasons that they have so much flexibility for turning their head. Way more than us. Oh. Okay, well, we're going to, let me tell you about what this owl eats. Of course, this is a fake owl, but a great horned owl is the top predator in the night sky. Nobody messes with a great horned owl. Nobody. So they eat mammals, they eat reptiles, they eat other birds. They even eat their cousins, the next 3 owls that you're about to meet. Yeah. And they'll even eat a mammal that just scares the heck out of us. When we see this mammal, oh my goodness, we just run the other way as fast as we possibly can. Anybody have a clue what that animal might be? Are you scared to death of a mouse? Would you run the other way if you saw a mouse? No, not a mouse.
Yes, I would.
I'm going to give you a hint. It's about the size of a house cat, about the size of a kitty cat. It has all black fur with a white stripe down the middle. What is it? A skunk. Yes, they'll even eat skunks. So what does that tell you about their sense of smell? Not very good. Yeah, or they wouldn't be going after skunks. So we're going to go ahead and set our fake owl. So watch those dark brown eyes and see if you see that third eye flip across his eyes. He's not cooperating, is he?
No.
Do you want your stick?
No, there it goes. Okay.
You all are doing a good job making him feel comfortable. Keep it up. So, watch those eyes. Now that third eyelid is to protect his eyes. Like if he's flying through the forest or, twigs or leaves might hit him in the eye and hurt his eyes. Or if he's swooping down fast to catch something in that field, it's summertime, a bug. Have you ever ridden your bike real fast and gotten hit in the eyeball by a bug? Man, that hurts. But for an owl, it could damage his eye. So when they're either on the hunt or flying through the forest, they will close that third eyelid across their eye to protect it. It's kind of like having built-in goggles to protect the eyes. Now, I'd like you, this is actually Bart. He's a boy, and he's called a barred owl. If you look at his chest, you will see alternating like cream, brown, cream, brown, cream. It's alternating stripes or bars of color. So that's how they got called barred owls. And if you'll notice, this coloration is really good camouflage. Yeah, for in the forest. You've got some camo on. Yeah, looks like it. You do. Well, he's camouflaged in a different way. And the great horned owl is also camouflaged in a different way. Now, why do you suppose they need camo? They don't need it at night, but what's an owl doing during the daytime? Sleeping. So when an owl goes to his favorite branch to sleep during the day, he stakes his foot. Remember I told you they have 4 toes with a deadly sharp talon on the end of each toe. And when they're hunting, this is what their foot looks like. 3 toes forward, 1 back, the better to grasp onto their prey. But when they sleep, when they go to their favorite sleeping branch, they can swivel that outer toe behind. So they have 2 toes in front and 2 toes in back. And they clamp onto that branch, and they've got a locking mechanism in their foot that keeps them, when they're sound asleep, from falling off of that branch. Yeah, good thing. So here, let's get back to the color, the camo color. What are they hiding from? What are these owls hiding from during the day?
They're hiding from like foxes, wolves.
Do you think a fox could climb a tree and get an owl?
Dickerson.
A lion.
Do we have lions here in Missouri? Oh, I've never seen one. Oh my goodness, I don't think so.
Ashley.
Maybe other owls.
Well, no, but I'm going to give you another bird. You were right there. It's another bird. Bigger than a robin, but smaller than Bart.
Like
All black feathers. Caw! Caw! What is it? Crow! Yes. Oh, crows are so smart. Crows are so smart that they know they're on the menu for these 2 owls. And so if a crow spots a barred owl or a great horned owl sleeping during the day, he screams out a warning and he calls in all of the friends and relatives. And they line up. They can't hurt him, the owl, but they can sure make life miserable. So they line up kind of like in a relay team. And the first crow flies past the owl, and as soon as he gets right up close to him, he shrieks in his ear and goes around to the end of the line. And then the second crow does the same, and the third, and the fourth, until finally the owl goes, oh my goodness, I'm never going to get any sleep around here, and he flies off. Well, it's not over yet. They follow him. So during the daytime, if you ever see an owl or a hawk being chased and pursued by a whole bunch of other birds with the crows in the leaves, that's called mobbing. And what they're trying to do is drive that predator out of the territory where they sleep at night. So they don't have to worry about this predator coming along and while they're sleeping, pluck them right up off of their sleeping branch and eat them for dinner. So they're just trying to move that owl someplace. The one you're about to meet is called a barn owl. So by the very name barn owl, where do you suppose they like to sleep during the day and raise their young? In a barn, you betcha. And the problem around here and in the middle of the country is that a lot of farming now is huge scale. I would call it industrial farming. And so we're losing our small farm homesteads and the barns that go with them. And that means that the barn owl is losing habitat, places where they can sleep during the day and raise their babies. So this is Silo. Now you'll notice that Silo, he's really a cool looking bird, isn't he? He's got that heart-shaped face, and there's a kind of a dark line around the edges. All owls have a facial disc. But I think it's just so much easier to see that facial disc with this particular species. So, you can't see his ears, but he's got ear hole openings. And those ear hole openings are behind his eyes and under the feathers. They don't have these flaps like we do. They just have the hole openings. And the right one's a little higher on the head, and the left and kind of tips up, and the left one's a little lower on the head and kind of tips down. And that facial disc collects sound like our ear flaps do. And so that facial disc collects the sound, and then each and every feather in that facial disc can be manipulated to funnel the sound directly into their ears. Oh, Bart, good boy. He must feel better now. He just pooped. Not a problem. We'll get it later. Yeah. Oh, he's lighting his load. What a good boy. Can we get that later? Okay. Instead of, either that or we can put the owl back in the crate. A or B. Later? Okay. All right. Well, oh, now he is feeling lighter. See, he's looking like he's going to take off because he's lighting his load. He is. Yeah. Oh, there he wants to go, but Dee's got a good hold of him. Don't you worry. Well, this owl, about 90% of its diet are rodents. His very favorite food are rodents. Oh my goodness. This owl is a favorite of farmers and people who grow grapes because they eat a whole bunch of mice, and mice are very destructive to our agricultural crops. So farmers love this owl. 90% of his diet is going to be mice and other rodents, and the other 10% will be small birds. So he's got these really long wings and these really long legs. And the other two birds that you just met, the great horn and the barred owl, they perch high up on top of the light pole and watch over a field, and when they see something, they swoop down and grab it. But this barn owl works. He goes back and forth. He flaps his wings and slides. Flaps and glides with his long wings. And he works that field back and forth like a grid. And while he's flying, he's watching, but he's also listening. Yeah. With that facial disc and the position of his ear hole opening, it's like having a satellite dish on either side of your head. Yeah. Scientists tell us they can hear 10 times better than we can. So, let's pretend that this little mouse is living out there in that field. And it's the dead of winter, and there's just been a big snowfall. 6 inches of snow on top of that meadow. And this little mouse, he's all snuggled in those thick meadow grasses. He's collected seeds over the summer to keep him full and fed during the winter time. And he can tell that it's dark, and he's just had a big meal, and he's very sleepy. And he's feeling real secure because he's covered up by those meadow grasses, and then 6 inches of snow, out of sight, out of danger. Or is he? Not with this one around. Even if this little mouse was sound asleep, not even moving the whiskers, this owl can hear his heartbeat at some And take those long legs, drive him down through that snow, and grab that little mouse when he's sound asleep and pull him up and glop down the hatch. Last sleep for this guy. Yep. So, excellent hearing, much better hearing than any of the other rabbits. And that facial disc is something that really helps collect the sound and funnel it to his ear hole opening. Now, let's say we've got, now bunny rabbits can be nocturnal. And so let's just pretend this bunny rabbit is out feeding at night. He's got his nose to the ground, chomping on some clover. And his big long ears, oh my goodness, he can pick up sound like nobody's business. And he can swivel his ears independently of each other. And he's always moving his ears around, listening to see if he can hear danger. Well, the bunny would hear the hawk coming during the daytime, but he would never hear the owl, because a hawk, a falcon, or an eagle has sharp edges on their feathers, their flight feathers. And when they fly, it makes a noise. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Maybe we can't hear it, but the rabbit with its big long ears can hear it. So if he hears that whoosh, whoosh coming behind him, and he thinks, oh, I gotta make a run for it. And he'll zig and zag and get himself under cover and save himself. But an owl's flight feathers are fringed along the edges. And when they fly, the air flows through those fringed edges silently. So the owl is a much better hunter than a hawk, simply because they have way better hearing and they have silent flight. So the prey never hears them coming. It doesn't even have a chance to escape. It's the smallest one that lives here in Missouri. It's called an eastern screech owl. And these little owls are only about 8 to 9 inches tall. And they only weigh about half a pound, 8 ounces. And the only one that comes in 2 different colors. Yeah. They come in the color of gray, and they come in the color that we call rust or red. And here's the deal. Owls like to be camoed. They like to blend in with their environment, especially during the daytime, remember, so they don't get harassed or chased or anything when they're trying to sleep. And they want to stay. Now this is Alfred. O-W-L-F-R-E-D. Alfred. And he, as you can see, is one of the gray, or the red or rust-colored morse. Now, the grays like a deciduous forest, like oaks and hickories, maples, where the bark is gray. But the rust-colored ones, they prefer a coniferous forest or a pine trees, because the bark on pine trees is kind of an orangey color. So it helps them to blend in better and stay hidden from their prey and their predators. But sometimes a deciduous and a coniferous forest can kind of converge. And so it wouldn't be unusual for a gray or red to become lifelong mates. And when they pair up, there's no divorce in owldom. They stay together all of their lives. And these little guys are cavity nesters. Because they're so little, they try to stay hidden. And so they'll take over an old abandoned woodpecker nest hole and tree cavity. And they eat there, sleep there, raise their young in that tree cavity to stay. And when they go out to eat, find food, in the summertime, they eat a lot of bats and a lot of insects. But in the winter, whenever, the bats are hibernating and the insects have disappeared, then they switch over to the small birds and small rodents. So, the vintners and the farmers also try to attract these guys by putting up little nest boxes for them. And even along the roadside, sometimes the state of Missouri will put up nest boxes on the back of the billboards where there's an agricultural field to try to make a nice home for a little screech owl, eastern screech owl. So, this little guy, he has the excellent vision. He has the sharp curved hooked beak. Now they use that beak, all of the owls, like we use a knife and a fork. So after they've captured their prey, they get them out. Well, they use that sharp point of the beak to hold it down, and then the sharp sides of the beak to saw off small pieces that they can swallow whole. Yeah, because they don't have any teeth. They can't chew their food, so they have to tear it into small pieces that they can gulp down whole. Yeah, but when they do that, they swallow the fur, they swallow teeth, they swallow bones, feathers if they captured a bird. That barn owl, he uses those long wings to work a field, but he also, if he sees little birds in a bush at night sleeping, he'll go up to that bush and use those big long wings to beat up against that bush, and the little birds in the bush go, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on? Oh, and they fly up in the air, and that's when the barn owl, like Silo, picks them off. Yeah. So they've got some interesting hunting strategies, these birds. Now, this little guy, he's just in miniature. He's got the excellent eyesight. He has the excellent hearing. He's got the sharp curved hooked beak. He's got the strong miniature. And the critters that he catches to eat are either small mammals or birds, or the longer he's out and about, the more chance there is that instead of being the predator, he'll end up being the prey, because one of his bigger cousins will maybe come along and grab him to eat. So this little guy hunts right at dawn, just before the sun comes up, and at dusk, just after the sun sets, but never in the dark of night when his bigger cousins are going to be out hunting. So he's got a couple of strategies. The time of day he hunts, or the dawn, night, dawn and dusk, and as soon as he captures something to eat, right back to that tree cavity to eat it. So he doesn't take a big risk on getting caught by one of his bigger cousins. They try to get to the food that we eat before we can get to it. So owls and hawks are very valuable assets for we humans. By getting rid of those critters in our